It's Rog, and today we continue to preview the Copa América. Every team, every group, every storyline across 3 podcasts. This is our podcast series presented by Dove Men+Care, and in this one, who better to break down Group A than to welcome back to our show an American who'll have a key hand in shaping its destiny, a bloke who on May 13, after coming close to becoming United States manager last year, kept his flag pinned to the CONCACAF mast by pivoting and in a truly remarkable moment, agreeing to become the head coach of Canada. He now runs with Alphonso Davies, Champions League regular with Porto, Steven Eustáquio, and Lille striker Jonathan David, recently linked with Atletico Madrid and more. To be honest, I think Canada under Jesse Marsch is one of the most fascinating, complex, potentially remarkable storyline that our region has ever had competitively. I can't wait to watch him unleash his need for speed with the remarkable generation of players that the Canadians have developed. And in this Copa, it's going to be sorely tested. Let's be honest, it's going to be playing Lionel Messi in Argentina and then 2 South American teams, Peru and Chile, who've each qualified for World Cups as far back as 1930. Honestly, I'm delighted that he agreed to join us on the eve of this remarkable moment in his career. Must be crazy, hectic, mad for him right now. Here's our conversation. My guest today is a gent who's made regular appearances on this show, but he returns in a new guise, with a new challenge and under a new banner. Jesse Marsch. We know this. He's a great American, a bloke who played for the United States men's national team. He's been on the coaching staff for the US team at a men's World Cup. And after managing in Europe's highest leagues, he's returned to coaching by becoming the manager of a team so many in our region have admired so much over the course of the last cycle. Canada, Les Rouges. Unless he dreamed last night that he'll still ultimately break my heart by lifting the Copa América trophy, beating the United States in the final. At this magical time, honestly, it's fascinating to welcome back the pride of Racine, Wisconsin, and my friend, it's Canada's new head coach. It's Mr. Jesse Marsch.
Hey, buddy. You always have an interesting introduction for me. I don't think I'm worthy of any of these things that you say of me, but it's good to see you again.
You're always doing interesting crap. You do keep it interesting.
That's true.
When we last spoke, you were poised to take over possibly the South Korean national team. I went to bed, I'm going to be candid. Again, dreaming of you managing Sonny and several Kims, eating bulgogi in Wuhan, and then suddenly May 13th, it's announced you're managing the Canadian men's national team. You're staying in our Star Wars cantina that is CONCACAF. Fill us in, Jesse. Tell us the backstory. What were you looking for that helped you decide Canada was it?
Yeah, I think, you can bring up South Korea, but there were a lot of discussions, right, over the last year plus,
huge number,
which was a nice time, by the way, Roger. I enjoyed my free time. That was wonderful. And people were always asking me, are you ready to get back to work? And I didn't really have an answer for that because, for so many years I'd only known working, and to not work was really nice. And then the media people that I work with will be like, well, you are working. I'm like, no, this is not really work. So I think they took offense to that, but I'm used to offending people, so it's okay. But nonetheless, Canada. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it started with somebody came to me months ago and spoke to me about it. But then, the way I described it is that I had heard that the CSA was a mess. And I think it was for a while, right?
That's the Canada Soccer Association.
Yeah, I don't think it was easy for everybody to understand what the future would look like. And then when I went through the interview process with Kevin Blue and the rest of the people in the board, and I saw, Kevin's expertise, his professionalism, the types of conversations that he leads and holds, and then I saw the passion of the people and the desire for them to get this all back on track. And then I coupled that with the player pool, right? Like we all know that Canada has a talented group, so. When I started to put all the pieces together and think about what would the opportunity look like, I got really excited. And I tell you, after being in charge now for a month and working with the team closely for 10 days, I'm really excited that I took this job, and I'm absolutely certain that I made the right decision.
I want to break down the steps that you've taken in this short time as we kind of careen towards the Copa. I love that you've talked about how you first looked at the Canada job 12 years ago, and you actually brought your original application while you were interviewing this time around, lest anyone forget. Your first head coaching job was in Montreal with the then Impact. So in some ways, this was a union a dozen years in the making. But Jesse, you're a data-driven gent. I mean, tell me, as you ran the numbers over this Canadian squad, the speed, the stars, the undoubted talent, what jumped out at you that we wouldn't understand from the outside?
Well, I thought that they weren't really maximizing the potential of the player pool because a lot had been tilted toward thinking about possession football, which, look, we all know that in modern football, you want to be good in all phases of the game. But when I looked at this player pool and how dynamic and the team speed, I thought immediately about the way I play and playing a little bit more in transition and being more dynamic, even in pressing and in counter pressing, and even in possession, and what your goals and your objectives are in those moments. And so, I thought that we could achieve some immediate success, some immediate returns, just by doing some simple things correctly. And I think we're seeing that now. Certainly, you can see that the team is playing differently than it played in the past. And I think even the game against France, it's not just that the France game was a good performance. It was that it was a well-rounded performance. And you saw individually, you saw very good performances because I think the players were clear as to what their roles were. And then collectively, I think you saw that we made it hard and difficult on France to find the game in ways that they normally do. And again, that's in all phases. So this can't just be a one game thing. It has to be now about, growing and developing and step by step getting stronger and stronger. But again, the early returns have me feeling a real sense of optimism. But there's certainly a lot more work to be done.
We need to quickly address the passport-tinged elephant in the room, because Jesse, you are American. You are very American. We talked about the Caps, that you were assistant coach under Bob Bradley at the 2010 World Cup. And I know from our conversations, you've spent volumes of time thinking about American football, American DNA. You've talked about, made no secret of, applying for the US men's national team coaching position while it was open. You've also talked about how frustrated you were, let's just say that, by the process. I know you as an intensely competitive bloke. So when this job came available, how much of the attraction was proving to those who didn't give you that job that you could do it, not just on the international stage, but in this region, on this very continent?
No, I don't think anything. Honestly, when U.S. Soccer made their decision, I closed the door. I just closed the door and said, okay, I'm done with that. And then it was just about trying to find the next best situation. And so, I mean, look, if I look at it simply as, okay, did I turn down some things just thinking that this was what I was going to do? No, I didn't have Canada in the back of my mind. But as I was evaluating with all these different discussions, Roger, in the end, you get to a certain point in your life, forget your job and football and all the rest, but you just get to a point in your life where you want to be around people that you want to be around, right? You want to be part of something that inspires you, that makes you feel like you have that youthful enthusiasm again. And that's the feeling I got with Canada right away. So, of course, I had some of my friends who are American or have been in American soccer ask, Canada, really? You want to go up there? And I said, yes, absolutely. Because of the Canadian people I've known in my life, whether it was in college or growing up or the experiences I had of going to play in Canada when I was young, of my time in Montreal and the type of people I met when I was there. And then, watching this team and discussing different football things from a Canadian football perspective and getting to know everybody more and more. if I go through all those things, I have so many positive relationships with Canadian people. I have so many positive things to say about what the sport is like in the country. The way that they recruited me and came after me and believed that I was the right guy in all ways, I was like, this is perfect. So, and again, working with the team so far has been really great. And the guys have accepted me, and I think they understand that what I'm trying to do with them is beneficial for them as individuals and for them as a team. And we're going to continue to try to push that in all the right ways so that we can represent everything that we want to represent for the country in 2 years.
I am fascinated by this process by which you pick up the team, but I want to say I think this is amazing. I think this is you rolling with Canada. I think is exactly what CONCACAF needs. But when you took that Canada job, you embarked on a mini tour to meet the players in person from your home base in Tuscany. You went to Munich to see Alphonso Davies, fresh off scoring in the Champions League semi-final for Bayern Munich. You went to Milan to see Tajon Buchanan, first Canadian in Serie A, playing with Inter. To Lille, France, Jonathan David scored 26 goals each of the last 2 seasons. And then to Mallorca, where striker Kyle Larin recently played in the final of the Copa del Rey. Meeting so many of your senior players in the top clubs across Europe. And we want to talk a little bit about our Dove Men+Care performance player to watch. That'd be Alphonso Davies, a gent who represents freshness in every single way. He said that you asked him repeatedly what it means to be Canadian, and the two of you really drilled down deep. He said he really had to think about it. So I'll turn the question back to you, Jesse. What have you learned about this country off the field? What is the Canadian DNA?
Well, I think it's about kindness and generosity, and it's about togetherness. And I think at the highest level with the team, when they've been at their best, it's been about having an edge, right? So I think combining the selflessness with the competitive will has been kind of the DNA hallmark of this team. And so my job, I think, is to try to also mature it to be ready for that edge, that competitive will, that fearlessness, to prepare it technically and tactically for even bigger challenges and the best games. And so we're not just where we're competing with the best opponents, but we're able to knock them off at certain times. So, and I think, that the players see that. I think they see that they at the highest level with some of the best players, that there's a real confidence and belief, but like collectively, in order to create something that's building upon the foundation that's already been built for the last few years, that a big part of it is a belief system and attaching it to a playing style and a commitment and a relentlessness to go after it at the most difficult moments and do it together. And I tell you, I said this, there's not one, I don't think I've ever coached a team where there's not one difficult person or player in and amongst the group. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, right? It's a good thing and a bad thing. And so I appreciate the group so much because they want to respond, they want to please, they want to do everything, but there also has to be a little bit more of an edge that sometimes, like I always got along with the best players that I coached that were sometimes like, coach, just shut up and let me play, right? So there's a little bit of balance that we need to strike and push a little bit more with this team, but I know that we're going to get that. Or I know we're going to get that there.
I love that. Other teams are missing a striker or a central defender. The Canadian national team is missing an arsehole in that mix. Yeah. That's what you need. But this has been a whirlwind. I've been trying to think about it from your perspective, your experience. You officially began your new position May 13th. A week later, you had to name your first squad, and a mere 38 days on the job. That will be your first game in Copa América, 8 p.m, Thursday, June the 20th. And it's only versus reigning Copa and World Cup champions Argentina. We'll talk about them in 1 second. But what have your days been like since you took the job, jetting around Europe, meeting the players, watching the tape, trying to get a vision of the tactics? I guess I'm asking you, what have you prioritized, Jesse? And have you actually slept?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, getting to know the players has been the most important thing, because I have to evaluate which players in the short term do I think are most worthy of our investment, of our time investment and our playing style investment and everything else. And so watching videos, my staff cutting a lot of videos for me. So I get a lot of 12-minute like snapshots of games from players, right, over the last 6 months. So I've seen a lot of the moments from the team and been trying to keep track of what they've done well, how does it fit in what we're doing moving forward. I spoke to every player in the player pool and trying to get to know them and trying to make it clear to them also who I am, what I will value moving forward, how I think they will fit, even if I'm not calling them in right now, to try to be pushing certain things with what they're doing with their clubs so that they can understand and assimilate quickly when they do get called in. So, that evaluation process and those conversations have been really vital. And then there's the side of just now representing the country and the sport in the country, and getting to know the stakeholders in the CPL, the Canadian Professional League, in the MLS teams, in the communities, on the board. There's a lot of people that I need to get to know and that need to get to know me, that understand my vision. And the last one I would say is Bev, the women's coach.
Bev Priestman.
She's done such a great job with the women's team, and they're going into the Olympics now, and she's had such great successes, and I want her and I to be real partners in this project too, where we can be big representatives of helping the football community in Canada grow and mature and get better and modernize. And I know she's going to be a great partner in this as well. So it's exciting. It's obviously about the first team, but there's so much to it that I think we can continue to build upon.
I mean, just the number of stakeholders you've had to meet is an indicator that your managerial career has been in club football, which is a different beast to the international game. When you're a club manager, you can train with your players, drill in your ideas, trademark high press system into them day in, day out. On the national team, you work with the players so fleetingly, and you work with the squad you have. That's what you've got. You can't do wheelings and dealings to try and fix your weaknesses. Who have you talked to about this fundamental difference as you seek to adapt or tailor your style?
Yeah, well, I have the experience of when I was with Bob Bradley, right, in 2010, and the way he built things and the things he valued. And I watched that very closely, always with the eye of, okay, what would it be like if I ever wanted to do that? And so, a lot of the ideas of how to run the staff for a national team and how to have relationships with the players and then have a process, I learned from that time with Bob. And then I spoke with Hansi Flick when he was with Germany. I spoke with Ralph Rangnick when he was with Austria, and he's been with Austria. And I spoke with Gareth Southgate as he's been with England. And I had all kinds of questions for them. I mean, each meeting was hours. And I was relentless with, how do you do this? What do you think about this? Can you implement a playing style? How do you implement it when they're not there? When you are there, how do you maximize the experience? How do you maximize the nationalism within the team, creating unity and with so many different personalities and people coming from different places? And they all had a little bit different take on it. But there was something to take away. And even now when I didn't present this part, but I made a list of what each one thought. And there were some cross-referencing themes, but they were also very unique to who they were as individuals. Like Ralph is relentless in the idea of playing the kind of football that he wants to play. Hansi is an incredible manager and really good with people, and he cares a lot about that side of leading a team. And Gareth is one of the most humble, open, kind people you'll meet in football, right? And I think that those three things were underlying factors in who they were. And as much as I learned what they did well, what I also learned is it's another situation where I need to be true to myself and the things that I value, and make sure that in that way that I implement that within the team that I'm going to work with and try to put it to practice. So I'm thankful to have kinds of relationships where I can reach out to people like this and learn from them. But the more you learn from them, the more you realize how it's so important to really identify who you are and what you want to be.
Rather than just don a Gareth Southgate style waistcoat for that first game and try and incorporate those kind of homages. I've got to say, your first 3 games as coach of Canada some brutal gauntlet. There were 2 friendlies against the Netherlands and Mbappe's France. And then first up in the Copa, as I said, Messi's Argentina. You played the teams ranked 1st, 2nd and 7th in the FIFA World Rankings right now. Nothing like easing into a new job than that kind of unrelenting challenge. In the past, and we've talked about this, I've spoken to American players after big tournaments, and they'll often admit privately that they didn't truly believe they'd beat a powerhouse opponent before they stepped onto the field in a big game before the ball was kicked, in their hearts. How do you prepare the team, the Canadian team, mentally to believe it can win in massive games like these?
Well, it works on 2 levels. It's about the way that I speak to them and the way that I challenge them and the types of leadership I try to pull out of them, and all with the idea that we want to be our best when it's most difficult. And then there's the clarity of the tactics, right? Like, people always say, yeah, play brave. This is even in German, this is a big phrase, like play with courage, play brave. But the way to play brave is to trust the system that you're a part of, and then you can go out and do the things that make you good at what you do. And so I think that, we really tried to create a clear foundation for the way we were going to play moving forward, the kind of vocabulary, the kinds of tactics, the kinds of principles, and how all of that fit together. And that's the main thing that I tried to instruct when I first come in, is not just like, we want to do this when we have the ball, and we want to do this when we're pressing. But I tried to create an understanding of how all the tactics fit together so that all moments of the game, we can be in control of what's happening with ourselves and the opponent, and how all the pieces fit together. And I've gotten good, because I've had too many jobs in the last years, Roger. I've gotten good at that part of things. Right. And we've evolved over time, but like, the clarity at which I can communicate how I want our team to play and what their roles are will often determine how quickly they can adapt and learn and grow. And so, I thought we had a really good first 45 minutes against the Dutch. We made some changes in the second half, and then the Dutch were able to crank things up. The Dutch also play a specific man marking style, which always challenges things that you want to do. And it winds up being that you have to create specific things sometimes for exactly what they are. So I had to try to get the balance right between establishing things for us, but also addressing what the Dutch were going to do to us. But in the first half, I thought we got that right. And then against the French, we wanted to use some of the lessons from the Dutch game and say, okay, here's when we were good in the match. Here's when we suffered. And how can we play to the things that we did well more and peel away some of the things that we didn't do as well. And then I challenged them to be up for the challenge, and even against a better opponent, to not be satisfied with just 45 minutes, but to go out and play for 90. And for the most part, they did that well.
You kick off the Copa in Atlanta now, June 20th. Said this several times, but let's talk about it. Against Argentina, fresh off winning that seismic World Cup that seals Lionel Messi's place in history as if he needed it. He'll turn 37 this summer. Just the 8 Ballon d'Ors so far as the best player in the world, plus the 44 career trophies, searching for his 45th. Practical question, Jesse. How do you even prepare for Lionel Messi in training? When you're trying to train your team for how to mark him, how do you mimic Lionel Messi? It's not like just anyone else works as his stand-in. It's almost like, how do you practice a Bruce Lee fight scene without Bruce Lee?
Well, look, I have experience of playing against him. And when we played PSG, we had Messi was on the pitch, but so were Neymar and Mbappe. But one of the things when we play players that we know are difference makers in a team is almost like, in the NFL, when they put a bib on a quarterback, that's a different color. But for that reason, it's don't hit him. And what I do is for training, and then I'll put someone in a different color and say, okay, now we have to identify at all moments of the game, whatever phase of the game we're in, including set pieces, where is this player? And making sure that he is never left alone, never left not accounted for. Right. And that's always built into our tactics anyways, how we do rest defense, how we build in certain moments, how we counter press, all these things. But certainly when you're talking about Messi, his ability to just look like he's not even paying attention and just kind of float in the game, but always be knowing where the right space is, and when the ball comes available, being exactly where he needs to be. this is at the highest level, what he's incredibly good at. So, but this will not be an emphasis of one player. We won't be man marking him, but we will certainly try to be aware of where he is at all moments, what behaviors he likes to exhibit, and how to try to control that as a group, right? But what you find is in these moments, like I could tell you that we played PSG twice, and I felt like against those three players we did a really good job, but we gave up 5 goals in those games, all 5 goals to those 3 players. So this is what makes the best players so good, is even when you do so many things well, they're the code breaker. So we have to try to see if we can stop that on the day.
You can distract him with a Hard Rock burger and a can of Michelob Ultra. The rest of your Group A opponents, Chile and Peru, Game 2 in Kansas City, Tuesday, June 25th, 6 p.m. Eastern, against the Peruvians, a team that has gone through 5 coaches in the past 5 years, not quite landing on what the next step is for them after qualifying for that 2018 World Cup. Chile rounds out the stage, 8 p.m. Saturday, June 29th in Orlando. The head manager, Ricardo Gareca, last guided Peru to the 2018 World Cup, though he's unlikely to be fazed by facing his old team. This is a gent, one of the great characters in football, targeted for car bomb assassination by Pablo Escobar when he was winning the Colombian League twice in a row with America de Cali. His flowing grey locks will not have a strand knocked out of place by the challenge of trying to win a first Copa America with Chile since when the US last hosted it. Looking ahead to these games, Jesse, what gives you the most confidence and what's your greatest fear?
Well, I think for us, like even when I talk about our ability to grow and be more mature and the edge that I want us to have, look, at the very core, when you play South American teams, these are like street fights, right? So if you go into the game naively thinking that this is just going to be about tactics and how we are going to be on the ball, then we will suffer. And their savviness, their ability to fight, their cleverness on the pitch, and their understanding of what the best games require make them at any time a very difficult opponent. So we will have to grow up quickly. We have a young team. We have a team that has some great experiences together, but we will have to use those experiences, and I will have to challenge them to understand exactly from just a mentality perspective what the level of the game is going to look like. And then we have to be up for it. We can't be fazed by if they're rolling on the ground or if they're getting shots in. We can't be fazed by their competitive will and their ability to put pressure on the referee. We can't be fazed by the crowd that they'll have on their side. And we just have to relentlessly stay focused and hard and strong in all the ways that we know will be most important to affect the match. And so, we're gonna play to our strengths. We're gonna play to our football, but we're gonna have to grow up and understand exactly what these kinds of games will require.
You're now employed by a nation, footballingly a slumbering giant for decades, spent 36 years between World Cups, a streak that ended in 2022, now propelled by a true crop of generational talent, and you as the new manager. Jesse, speak to the Canadian fans listening at home. What can they expect from you and the team this summer? What's your goal? What would you consider the markers of success at this Copa to be?
Yeah, look, in general, I understand and respect the responsibility of being a national team coach. And it's something that I relish in. I'm honored by it, and I'm excited about bringing my experiences to try to help our country grow and become bigger than what it is. Because you say it's a sleeping giant, I agree with you entirely. And one of the things that I think makes Canada so special is it's very multicultural. And I know we say that the US is multicultural, but the multicultural of being a Canadian is often that there's real connection and understanding of your heritage, where your family's from, often speaking the same language as you spoke in Portugal or in Africa or wherever in Europe. You still speak that in the house in Canada, where that's not always the case in the US. And so I think that we have the opportunity to really bring everyone together with a home World Cup, with the gravity and importance that places on the sport and in the history of the nation, and then do it in a way that can also really access the talents of the people and the players to be more dynamic, to be more aggressive, to create more belief in the way we play and in how we act and in how we go after the best opponents in the biggest moments. And that in the end is what I want this to represent, right? And I think that that's something that the Canadian fans have been hungry for and will be really excited to get behind. And of course, it's going to take time, but I can promise you this. No one in our camp right now is just treating Copa America as this is a learning experience. Of course, we need to use it to ultimately make ourselves better for 2026. But the players, more than anybody, want to make sure that we're going after every game and that we want to represent ourselves in every way, get out of the group, and push to go as far as we can. So it's early in our process, and these are big goals in the moment, but we're never going to be satisfied with not being the best. And that's something we're pushing toward every day.
Amen. Jesse, there's so much I love about Canada. I was actually just in Montreal for a couple of days. I just love the passion for many things, but football amongst them up there. I truly believe in Bono's quote that the world needs more Canada. To you, to your Canadian squad, and to football fans across that great Canadian nation. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Raj.
Courage.